Krishna. Welcome to another Wednesday at ISKCON of Silicon Valley. And we will start today with some basic prayers. Let me get to the introduction. Let me share the screen with you. Okay, so here we are. So welcome to our Wednesday night lectures. Thank you for taking the time to come and give us your precious time to listen to Krishna Katha. Before we start, we always give gratitude. So I'll give gratitude to my Shiksha Guru, His Grace Shivas Pandit Prabhu. Everything that I have learned through his mercy at his lotus feet. And without his guidance and support, there is no possibility of me coming and trying to do any kind of small service like this. So I am extremely grateful to him. I'm also extremely deeply grateful to my Diksha Guru, His Grace Vaisheshika Das Adhikari. He is my strength, my whole purpose of service, and I am extremely grateful for his guidance and his care. My eternal gratitude to our Acharya, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founding Acharya of International Society of Krishna Consciousness. He is the one who has given me and you and everyone the path, the map, and the guides for our journey back home, back to Godhead. And without him, there would not be any ISKCON, there would not be any Wednesday programs in ISV, and there wouldn't be people like me who come to share this wonderful sweet nectar with willing listeners like you. So let's get started. All auspicious work starts with blessings. We seek the blessings. First, we took the blessings of our acharyas. We take the blessings from our Guru Parampara, from whom in disciplic succession we come, and the Vaishnavas, who are like Kalpatarus, desire-fulfilling trees. So we have a list of prayers. They are called Mangalacharana prayers, and we will recite them. After that, we have a small song, Jai Radha Madhav, that we always use to start our lectures. So we'll sing that song, small song, and then get to the lecture of the day. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratase Namaha. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Jayatam Suratau Pangor Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarvasya Padambhojau Radha Madana Mohanau. Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnangada Simhasanastau Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devau Preshtyalibi Sevyamanav Smarami. Shriman Rasarasarambi Vamsi Vata Tatastita Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinatha Shriyestunaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhav is a song from Geetavali. It's a small song that Prabhupada liked very much. He used to say that this song is the perfect picture of Vrindavan. In it, there is Srimati Radharani, there is Vrindavan, there is the Govardhan Hill, Yashoda, and all the cowherd boys. So it would please his heart very much. And he would sing this song before he started the lectures. It's a trend we continue in honor of his grace. So wherever you hear lectures in ISKCON, this would be the song that starts it off. We sing them too in the accompaniment to kartals, but because in these lecture series our audio-visual equipment is not compatible with music, we notice that the kartals cause a lot of voice issues. So I will sing it without the kartals. Please forgive me. Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Gopijana Vallabha Jayo Girivaradhari Jayo Girivaradhari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Gopijana Vallabha Jayo Girivaradhari Jayo Girivaradhari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari. So with that, let's get to the topic of today's lecture. Those who've been following my lectures over the past few months would notice that we have started working on the Bhagavad Gita. We've been covering the Bhagavad Gita. We started off with Srila Prabhupada's introduction, the most amazing introduction in the whole wide world. Such a exquisite composite of so many ideas, beautifully woven into this tapestry that presents such a clear and precise understanding of Krishna consciousness and what it is we are trying to do. And from there, we went on to the Bhagavad Gita itself. We did the chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita, which introduced us to the situation. It was setting the scene. And now we are now in chapter 2. We did the first half of chapter 2. And now today we will be wrapping up chapter 2, which is contents of the Gita summarized. So before we start off on that, we have to understand what is the Bhagavad Gita. For those who are joining us first time or who've not been listening to previous lectures, who just happened to stop on here, the Bhagavad Gita, as it says, Bhagavad Gita, the Lord's song. The song of the Lord is a collection of verses that cover instructions that were given to Arjuna from his friend Sri Krishna at the cusp of a great battle at the auspicious land of Kurukshetra that happened around 5,000 years ago. Now, Sri Krishna is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Arjuna is his very dear friend and disciple. And in this combination, the impact of this conversation or this discourse becomes extremely important. These verses that are quoted in the Bhagavad Gita are given for all of humanity at large. They bring to all of us a very needed solace and calm that in today's time and age is very rare to get. It enriches our lives and refocuses our thoughts on what is important, bringing us hope, peace, and everlasting joy. It is never a waste of time to read the Bhagavad Gita. Even the opportunity to read one verse a day, or the chance to listen to maybe part of a lecture, will leave you with such gratitude and calm. There are many people who have read the Bhagavad Gita and have left comments who leave quotations saying that it has really made their life different. So if this is the first time you're hearing of this book, or you're stopping by and listening, do try to open the Bhagavad Gita and see what it is. You would not be disappointed. There are 5 main ideas covered in the Bhagavad Gita. I do come back to this again and again, especially because for people who are new, it's difficult for them to jump into the chapters. So please bear with me. The 5 main ideas covered in the Bhagavad Gita are 1, Ishwar, which is the Lord; Jiva, which is the Jiva soul, which is us; Prakriti, Mother Nature; Kala, which is time; and Karma. Of all these, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. Karma is changeable. So we discussed all this in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita by reading Srila Prabhupada's explanations and trying to understand where and how do all these 5 things come together and fit in. So to do that, we have to be able to read the whole Bhagavad Gita. And we started off with the chapter 1, which is called Setting the Scene. It's very nicely called Setting the Scene because it does. It tells us what's exactly happening. And here we are. It's a battle between 2 cousins over, well, they're warriors. They're fighting over their rights for a land. And one has cheated the other out of their rightful share. And they have come demanding, what is truly theirs. And it's a righteous fight on the side of the Pandavas. And right now, they're all ready to fight. The camps have been set, the battle is ready, and we are in that scene. And it starts off with Sanjaya, who is helping out Dhritarashtra, who is the father of the Kauravas. And he, being blind, could not go to the battlefield. He's back in the palace. And Sanjaya is helping him by describing the scene that's happening in the palace. And how is he able to do that? Because he has this special ability to to see beyond, to see places where he cannot physically be. It's a special blessing that he has, and he's using it for the Dhritarashtra to help him see what's happening in the battle. And as we keep going through the first chapter, we understand the situation. All the armies are ready, everything's ready. Krishna arrives with Arjuna. He is actually being Arjuna's charioteer. And together, after they arrive there, Arjuna, ready to fight, says, "Can you please show me the opposite side? I want to see who are these people who have come to fight me." And Krishna obliges and takes him to the center of the battlefield. And Arjuna, who was so composed and confident and ready to fight, sees out and sees nothing but family. He sees friends, family, he sees grandfathers, uncles, teachers, and he realizes he's actually fighting his own people. And it makes a sudden change. He has a sudden change of heart. It makes him very uncomfortable. The idea that he's going to have to fight the very same people with whom he has, with whom he's personally connected. He shared a meal, he shared time and energy and created relationships. And the idea of having to kill them overwhelms him. And at that point, he's asking Krishna, what should I do? So at the end of that chapter, we are left with a few questions. Arjuna, instead of being the confident man that he is, holding his bow, his very famous Gandiva, puts his bow down and says, I will not fight. I cannot do this. I see nothing but imminent suffering that comes from this. Nimittani viparitani. I see so many things that are, I see only trouble. I see only inauspiciousness coming from this. I don't want to do this. Please help me. I don't understand. So we're left with these questions at the end of chapter 1. Will Arjuna actually get back up and fight? And what is Krishna going to do? Because this person is so emotionally overwhelmed. And as Arjuna is asking, is war really the solution? Should he actually fight? Is this a war he should actually be involved in? And is war a solution to their problem? Or is there some other way? In chapter 2, we start off with Bhagavad Gita contents of the Gita summarized, where Arjuna is requesting Krishna to help him, guide him. He says, I surrender. And then Krishna starts to give him guidance. So we covered till about, I think, 36 or 38, I'm not sure. And we stopped. But today I'm going to go back from 1. We're not going to go through 1 to 36 in detail, but we cannot start halfway in the middle of a chapter. So let's go with this. And as we go, we'll start looking at what all was covered and what all we've been looking at. And that will help us get a sense of, where we're at and how far we're going and what is the direction in which this conversation is headed. Text 1. Sanjaya says, so Sanjaya is watching, remember? He's observing the scene, sitting in the palace with Dhritarashtra, and he's telling Dhritarashtra what's happening. He says, Sanjaya says, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. And we remember, we were looking through it and we talked, what is real compassion? Arjuna is feeling compassionate because he's going to kill these people. But actually, real compassion is not that. We do not show compassion to the body. There is another entity inside that body. That supporting that entity is real compassion. And we talked about that. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Krishna is asking him, you're an Aryan. You've been raised with spiritual consciousness. How did you get so confused? He's asking him, these qualities do not suit an Aryan. You are an Aryan and you are a warrior. You cannot at this point show such weakness, he says, weakness of heart. And he calls him, O chastiser of the enemy. He calls him by the names that were given to him, that were famously awarded to him for his amazing prowess. And he's reminding him, this is your job. Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. So he's given a lot of reasons in chapter 1, and he continues to say the same. He says, these are my superiors, as per how I was taught, as per how we are instructed in etiquette. We do not respond even if a superior is ungracious towards us, even if he's mean, or even if we are rebuked. We should not respond because that is our way of showing respect. And here you are asking me to kill them, these people. And having killed them, what do I get? My hands now tainted with blood. How can I enjoy anything in that situation? Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So he's telling Krishna, even though I came here to fight, even though I know I'm on the side of righteousness, this is a right fight. If I kill my own cousins, I would not care to live. Yet here I am standing ready to kill them. I don't understand. Is this really my duty? And I am so overwhelmed. I cannot think straight, basically. So he says, well, how about this? I'll listen to you. I will surrender unto you. And as your disciple, you guide me. By myself, I cannot solve this. And even if I win this whole kingdom, even if I get more than what I'm asking for, it cannot take away the grief that I will feel in the process of getting it. So I'm very confused. This sentence that comes next is Sanjaya. O descendant of Bharata, at that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to grief-stricken Arjuna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Krishna smiles, and the smile has deeper meaning. Remember, we talked about how Krishna smiles because his friend has now become his disciple. And because of that, it is so nice to see that, that the mood of surrender, the closeness is now changing from friendship to instruction. And he says, even though you are mourning, you're mourning for all the wrong things. So even though you look like a learned person, Arjuna, you're not really talking smart talk. Because those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. What is Krishna trying to say? He says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So he says, there was never a time when we did not exist. So is he talking about this body? Because this body ages and dies, right? So he's talking about something else. He says, there's never a time when we didn't exist, Arjuna, neither you nor me, nor these kings that you're fighting. An embodied soul means a soul that is inside a body, that's held inside a body. An embodied soul passes from boyhood to youth to old age and similarly to death. A sober person, it's not about being drunk. A sober person is a person who has clarity. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Happiness and distress, says Krishna, they are non-permanent. Nobody stays unhappy forever. Neither does anyone stay happy forever. Just as we have the cycle of seasons, comes spring, comes summer, autumn, winter, so do happiness and distress take turns in coming and going. And all this is arising from our sense perception, our senses, the way we perceive the world through our senses. It is through that we recognize things to be of giving us joy and bringing sadness to us. He says, tolerate them all without being disturbed. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation. So what is he asking Arjuna to do? He says, tolerate all this. There will be times when you're unhappy, times when you're happy. That is how it is. It is the flow, like the seasons. And you must stay steady. Text 16 to 20. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, which is the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, which is the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. So Krishna doesn't say, I'm telling you, the soul doesn't die, the body doesn't last. He says, those who are seers of the truth, he says, it has been concluded by these great men, these great sages, rishis, that the body does not endure. No matter what you do, it will not last. And the soul, it never changes. It is going to be eternal and it's going to last. And this is not me, it is already well known. It has already been assessed and understood. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. What pervades the entire body? The soul. And the soul, the expression of the soul we discussed is consciousness. That is a symptom of the soul. He says that soul that is inside this body that is constantly changing never changes at all. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it is slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not, nor is slain. What is the concept of death to that which can never die? What are you talking about, Arjuna? Says Krishna. This body won't last. It is going to die anyway. And the soul is never killed. So what are you mourning for, is his question. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. In Krishna consciousness, the first thing we all learn is we are not this body. But it's a concept that is also extremely difficult to, not to understand, but to apply. We struggle in application because if I'm not this body, who am I, right? This feeling that, the way we experience the world around us is with this body, through our senses. To suddenly realize that all this is not me, actually, I am somebody inside. And this changing body is just a dressing, a casing, a covering for me, that I will be changing in time, is mind-blowing. And yet it's so true. If we stop and think about it, we can understand and realize that it's absolutely true. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon. It's nor burnt by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble. It can neither be burnt nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So, in this chapter, we have covered these points, talking about what is the soul and what is the body, and what is the nature of the soul, what is the nature of the body. And understanding these two things, we come to the conclusion that the people who die don't really die, because the essence of who we are is an eternal, indestructible thing. The soul is eternal and indestructible. So even though the outer casing, the body, will one day let go, it will die, the soul moves on, gets another body. This is our understanding. And the great seers of truth have understood this, says Krishna. So why are you grieving for this body that you're about to So this concept of killing, where does it arise from, he asks. Why are you grieving for this body that is anyway going to go away? If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. There is a philosophy that says everything comes from chemicals. It's created and then it goes back into chemicals. And Krishna says if that is the case, because Arjuna is very worried, if I kill them, I will gather sin. I'm going to be made accountable for this wrong act because I have done an offense. I have killed them. And Krishna says, well, you actually aren't killing anybody. The soul never dies, Arjuna. So don't worry about that. And if you do think that you're actually killing them, but if you're thinking that anyway, things come together, life is formed, and then it dies and goes away. There's a philosophy that's pretty rampant nowadays, that the concept that, we have only this one life, and then we don't know what. So let's just live this one life and live it well. But anyway, if that's how you're going to look at it, says Krishna, if you're going to look at the soul as something that's born and dying, comes together, breaks down apart, comes together, breaks down apart, even then you have no reason to lament. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. So therefore, in this unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. It says, even if you think that the soul is just symptoms of life that come together and go away, still there's no loss. Where's the sin? It was going to happen anyway. So you are here to fight for a worthy cause. It's unavoidable that you must discharge your duty. So don't lament. Krishna goes on to saying, all created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what is the need for their lamentation? So we discussed all this in the previous class, but we talk about an approach where, it comes into being and then it stays for some time and then it again dissolves out. So he says, this is what it is. Either way, no matter how you look at it, Arjuna, there's no reason to cry or lament. Then he says, some look on the soul as amazing. Some describe him as amazing. Ashcharyavat is the name. Ashcharya means in awe, in amazement. Some describe him as amazing. Some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. It's a cool thought, huh? That's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. So don't feel bad. The soul that can never be killed is never going to get hurt, and it doesn't change. The body was never going to last anyway. So don't be so upset. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Arjuna is not hesitating because he's there asking for the wrong things. He's not hesitating because it's not his job to fight. Arjuna is a Kshatriya. A soldier fights. That is his job. He's here to do his job. He's here because he is protecting. He's on the side of righteousness. He is fighting on religious principles. He's not just fighting to get some land or, upserve property. This is his right, and this is how we should live. He's saying what you did was wrong, and I'm here to claim my rightful share. And what I'm doing is totally acceptable. So he says, as a Kshatriya, everything you're doing is right. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. So Kshatriyas have the right to go to heaven when they fight the righteous fight. If they die in battle, then they are eligible to go to heaven. So he says, is that not a good thing? You're here to fight the rightful fight. So the doors of heaven will open for you. If you win, you win. Otherwise, you get to go to heaven. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sin for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. He says, just do your duty. And if you pass away, you get to the heavenly planets. If you don't, you win what you win. But if you don't do your duty, then of course, for sure, Arjuna, you're going to gather sin because it was your job. You have neglected your duty And also you will lose your reputation. You're such a famous fighter. People will always speak of your infamy. And for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think you left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you, Arjuna? He's asking. What could be more painful for you? Why would you do that? You will lose respect, you will lose your pride. And what's the point of living like that? And they won't even know. They won't know you're doing it out of compassion. They'll judge you by saying you're afraid. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by doing so, you shall never incur sin. So Krishna wraps it up by saying, this is not an option. Arjuna, get up and fight. Either you die here and get the heavenly kingdom, or you will conquer and have earthly pleasures and rule. Either way, these are the only two options. Running away, not putting up a fight is not the answer. And then Krishna goes on and says, thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. We've analyzed it from 2-3 angles, right? Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondages of works. So he says, there is another way in which I want to explain this to you. I will explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. So working without any purposeful expectation of a result. He says, if you can understand and work in such knowledge, you can avoid getting bound by your actions, bound by your works. In this endeavor, there is no loss. The effort in this, when you put effort in this kind of work, there is no loss or diminution, no reduction. And a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. What is the most dangerous type of fear? Most dangerous type of fear is that having attained this human body, this human form, you will lose it. You will lose this chance to up your state, to get a chance to try to go back home. You will end up back in the cycle of species, as we were discussing. There's so many species, and nature keeps rotating you through different bodies, different forms, and you get rotated through all that. And finally, one point, you get a human form of life. And the human form of life is this one opportunity to up your game, to better your status, and you can move out of this whole cycle. Otherwise, you're locked in. And he says that is the biggest fear, that you're going to go back into the cycle. But if you follow this path and stay on this path, even a little advancement, even a little bit of work will protect you. You'll get another chance to come back and do more. You don't have to fall back down into the species. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of Gurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. So we stopped around here, I think, last time, and we had all these questions, remember? So will Arjuna get back up and fight? Can Krishna help him? Can he help him with his emotional? Did he help him? And what is his solution? Is he asking him to fight, or is he agreeing with Arjuna and saying, okay, just quit? And we got all the answers. We got quite a lot of answers right now. We recognize Krishna says, there's no option for you. You're lamenting for that which you should not lament. You talk like a smart guy, but you're talking stuff that's not smart. You're worrying and you're lamenting over something that's never going to die. You're not killing the soul, and the body was never going to last. So you're not going to be able to keep the body going, even if you try. And even if they do die and come back, that's fine too, because they were anyway going to come back. So should we still fight the war? He says, yes, because it's a righteous war. You are on the right side. You're fighting for religious principles. It is your duty as a warrior to fight this war. And if you don't do it, then you get sin because you've neglected your duty and you bring shame and dishonor upon yourself. Whereas if you just go out there and fight the fight, you will get your chance to go to heavenly planets, even if you lose the fight. But if you do not fight, That's a really bad situation for you, O Arjuna. He says, yes, what is the answer? You need to fight, but learn to fight in such a way that that work does not bind you. And that's what he's going to start explaining as we keep going along. So we continue here, text 42 to 46. So I'm going to stick to the same format as we keep going. We have 72 verses. So we will keep going through the verses. I will read the verses and then look into certain points on the verses and see what Srila Prabhupada with his purports is trying to explain to us. Chapter 2 is light and heavy. It is light because it skims through a lot of topics, giving us a drone view, so to speak, of what's coming up in the Bhagavad Gita. It's heavy because it also gives us an in-depth clarity of what's coming. And it's a lot of information to absorb. It takes time. So this is a chapter that we revisit time and time again. So let's look at what we've done so far. We talked about all our issues. Krishna scolds him. Krishna says, you don't have clarity. You're not looking at it in the right way. He talks about what's the body, what's the soul, what's the difference. He explains all that. And then he says, let me continue to tell you how you can work in such a way that you're not bound by all this. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say there is nothing more than this. So the Vedas give us a lot of these instructions. They teach you, oh, did you want to go to the heavenly planets? You need to do this, you need to do that. If you follow this way of life and you do this kind of sacrifice and you live in this kind of manner, then you can get this, you can get that. What can you get? In your next life, you will get very good birth, or you will get lots of power. Whatever you want, you can get. So because everybody is so attached to these results of activities, they want to get something for every effort they put, they love to follow the instructions of the Vedas. And in their mind, there's nothing else but the Vedas. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence. For those who are new to the Gita, these words sound very heavy. For us who've been reading it, for those of us who've been reading it for a while, recognize these words: sense enjoyment, material opulence, bewildered, determination, devotional service. This is the jargon of the Bhagavad Gita. As you continue to keep reading it, you will get very comfortable with this jargon. Sense enjoyment is the ability to enjoy the world around us with our senses. Sense of touch, hearing, taste, sight, smell. With all of this and the other senses, working senses, and the sense. So with all of that, what we enjoy is sense enjoyment, this connection we have with the world around us. That and material opulence, living in grandeur, with power, with money, fame, with beauty, all these things, which are materialistically beneficial to us. Once we are attached to these two things, we get bewildered. And the resolute determination for devotional service does not take place. For one who is completely in illusion, who's completely attached to all these things, they cannot strongly connect with determination to devotional service. The Vedas deal mainly with the subjects of the three modes of nature, O Arjuna. Become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in self. So the Vedas, they basically deal with the three modes. What are the three modes? The mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. And all of us have these modes in varying capacities, in varying combinations, and the modes affect us differently in different times of day and night. The modes also affect us differently in different states of mind, which is also an interaction between us and the three modes, senses and the three modes. So the Vedas mainly deal with these topics. He says, Arjuna, transcend it, rise above it, free yourself, because with these modes come all dualities: sorrow, joy, happiness, distress. All of this comes, these anxieties for gain and safety are all coming from this. So try to raise yourself above it and establish in self. He says all purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. What is Krishna trying to say? Krishna is talking about the purpose of the Vedas. He says in Kali Yuga, remember we have these yugas. Yugas are a cycle, and different yugas, there are different quality of life, quality of people, quality of life. And here in Kali Yuga, we do have a tendency where people in general are not very intelligent and pretty ignorant. And due to their ignorance, they are very attached to this give and take. If I do something, what do I get? Fruitive activities that are recommended in the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. So they like that kind of stuff. I do all this and I will get all this. It's very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness. Now, these are all from Srila Prabhupada's purports. Prabhupada is explaining, he says, a fool who's attached to the flowers of a poisonous tree without knowing the result of such attraction is similar to these kind of people. He says, when you are attached to something that's not good for you, then you're basically a fool, a person of low intelligence, because this attraction is going to be costly and you are unaware. Prabhupada says, samadhi or fixed mind. When the mind is fixed for understanding the self, when you're ready, the mind is ready to stay focused, then it is in samadhi. It's ready to understand itself. Samyak adhiyate asmin atmatattva yathatmayam. All material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of nature. Like I said, you do something, something else happens. There's action, there's a reaction, and it's happening inside the three modes of nature. And all of this are meant for fruitive results. Causes something to happen. And whenever you do that, you want some result. By doing something, you want to get something, you get bonded, you get bondage to the material world. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material mode. So as long as we are in this body, in any kind of body, there will be action and reaction in this interaction of material modes, and you must learn to tolerate it. He says, tolerance in the face of dualities, happiness, distress, cold and warm. By tolerating these dualities, you can become free from the anxieties of gain and loss. What's in it for me? What will I get? What am I losing? These points will no longer be important to you. This transcendental position, rising above, is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. As we go along, we'll start to understand more. He says rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Karma Kanda division are meant to encourage gradual development of self-realization. So here Prabhupada says, what is the purpose of all this? This whole thing, do this, get that, do this, get that. It looks like a give and take checkbook, but actually it's meant to slowly encourage you to attain self-realization. And the purpose of self-realization is to know the Lord, to know the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, who is the primeval cause of everything. Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. To understand him is the purpose of self-realization, and the Vedic literature is meant to slowly take you step by step towards that goal. But if you forget and you do not even understand what was the purpose of the Vedas, you get lost inside it. Because the way it's running, you can really get lost in this process of give and take. Self-realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with him. Remember the 5 topics that we were talking about in the very beginning? Ishvara and the Jiva. This is the connection. Who's Krishna? Who am I? What's my relationship with him? Through the understanding of that, self-realization arises. It is not possible for a common man in this age to follow all rules and regulations of the Vedic rituals. It's not as it possible to study Vedanta and Upanishads thoroughly. The best purpose of Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, the deliverer of all fallen souls. So Lord Chaitanya came in this time and age to give us this amazing opportunity, once in a lifetime, in many lifetimes, comes to us this one opportunity And we should grab onto it. And what is it? It says, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. By this chanting, so this is what he was trying to say in that point. He says, all purposes served by a small well, using the Vedas to get this, that, it'll all come to you anyway, because if you go to the Lord, everything is available. And if you just attain self-realization, the great reservoir of water, the holy name, can give you everything. So if you could just do that, if you take to the chanting of the holy names, then it will serve all purposes. You'll not miss out on anything. Vedanta is the last word in Vedic wisdom, and the author and knower of the Vedanta philosophy is Lord Krishna. And the highest Vedantist is the great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all Vedic mysticism. So we're trying to understand Vedanta philosophy. We want to know what Vedanta is. But Prabhupada is explaining, Vedanta is the last word in Vedic wisdom. It means this is it. This is your answer. And who is the author and knower? Krishna himself. And the highest Vedantist is that great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all Vedic mysticism. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of actions. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Who is saying this? Krishna is instructing Arjuna. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is yoga. So he says, prescribed duties are activities that we do in terms of one's acquired modes of material nature. Like I said, in some people, there are certain modes that are stronger, in some people, certain other modes are stronger. Based on that, we end up with what is best suited to us, our prescribed duties. And if we do that, then we are in sync. We're following the process. So when we look at it, prescribed duties are divided into routine work, emergency work, and desired activities. Routine work is an obligation in terms of spiritual injunctions. So you are told this is how it should be done, and you do it. But you do it without a desire for the result. And therefore, this action is in the mode of goodness. When you work with the expectation of result, it becomes bondage. And such work is not auspicious. Everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but you should act without attachment to the result. So you have a right to do certain duties. It is your natural, it's your natural state. It is your prescribed duty. You do it routinely in the way that you're told to do, but don't expect to benefit or lose or do anything. Don't attach yourself to the work when you're doing it. That's what Krishna is trying to say. Everybody has a right, but do it without attachment to the result. Such disinterested obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. So DOD, disinterested obligatory duties. As long as you are disinterested but do all obligatory duties, you will be on your path to liberation, because the resultant effect of those actions will not stick to you because you're detached. That's the way to live, says Prabhupada. What about capricious work? Capricious work is work that is not authorized. Things you're told, things that have not been approved and told not to do, that would be capricious work. And the other option is to just sit without doing anything, inaction, not performing one's prescribed duties. These are the three different options. Doing your prescribed duties, doing work that's not prescribed, doing it without authority, just doing it on a whim, and then not doing anything at all. These are all three options when it comes to doing your duty. He says, Arjuna, do your duty equipoised, calmly. Abandon the result. Don't worry about the result. That way, the effect will not attach to you. Just do your duty as your duty. Keep all abominable activities, O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness, surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries. What is that state? They go back home, back to Godhead. So he says, do devotional service, and it will take away both the good and the bad. Is that a good thing? Yes, it is, because both the good and the bad are binding you here, keeping you here. You don't want either. You want to detach yourself from the results. Strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Thus, by thus engaging in devotional service, you will free yourself. You will not end up in this cycle of life and death. 4.49 says, except for working Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable because they continuously bind the worker to the cycle of life and death, birth and death. So this kind of working, which is not in Krishna consciousness, being attached to the results, feeling like I'm the guy doing it, I need to know what I'm going to get from it, how is it going to end? When we work like that, then the end result of the work attaches to us and we get stuck in the cycle of birth and death. What is the cycle of birth and death? We, as an eternal Satchitananda, happy, knowledgeable person, the soul ends up transferring from body to body to body and going around through the species, constantly going through cycles of birth and death, getting put into different packets, and then the packet lasts as long as it lasts, and then one day it fades away, and then you get put into a different packet. And this is a cycle you want to break. So, therefore, never desire to be the cause of work. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna, says Prabhupada. The purport to Bhagavad Gita 248 was really nice because Krishna is talking about yoga, right? Prabhupada explains yoga so nicely. So I took the whole purport, put it in here because I really felt it's such a nice purport and we should really listen to it. Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. What is yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. Who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord. And because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory is Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga. What is yoga? Keeping your mind on the Supreme and avoiding this distraction from your senses. And if the Supreme is giving you an instruction, you follow the instruction. So you are in yoga, it says. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. Aham asmi poho. This is mine. I did it. I am the cause of this result. All these attitudes will go away. One has to become the servant of Krishna or servant of the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga, which means to concentrate one's mind on the Supreme. The yoga of the body that we see everywhere is a means to control this body so we can actually do the real yoga, which is the yoga of the mind. So do not be confused by the word yoga. The yoga here we're talking about is the real yoga, the yoga of the mind. The yoga that you do with your body and your limbs is just to train your body to sit calmly for longer durations of time so you can actually do the real yoga, which is to concentrate your mind upon the Supreme. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, a warrior, and as such, he is participating in the Varnashrama institution. So Varnas and Ashramas, these are divisions that were created by the Lord and they eternally exist because anything that's created by the Lord cannot be destroyed by man. They always exist. And we look at this, there's stages in your life cycle where you go through, where you live in a certain way. And there are stages, there are different types of jobs, different types of occupations that you take based on your natural tendencies. So in this Varnashrama Dharma, this Kshatriya, this warrior role is authorized. It's there. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashrama Dharma, the whole aim of Varnashrama Dharma is to satisfy Vishnu. And when Vishnu himself tells you to do something, what else is more important? So nice, right? What Prabhupada is giving. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. So even though he says, I should not kill, if I kill, this will happen, that will happen, I have heard, so many other problems will come. He says, you do your duty and you do it to please the Lord. So if the Lord is asking you to do something, there is no other reason for you to refuse. Text 52 to 56. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. And with this, Krishna stops. So what is Krishna trying to say? He says, these Vedic rituals are important, these rites and rituals, because neophytes, young ones, new ones, they need all this. Comprehending all kind of prayer 3 times a day, taking a bath early in the morning, offering respects to forefathers, etc. All of this trains the mind and body. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles because he has already attained perfection. The purpose of the Vedas is to understand our connection with the Lord and to revive it and to serve him. Keep our mind to execute our yoga perfectly, keeping our mind focused on him, thinking of him. One who has achieved that does not have to follow all this. It's like you go through military training and then you come up and then, well, you don't need to train them again, right? Because you've already been through the training. And in a way, this is how it is. You go through the rituals, you follow the processes because you're not ready yet. Once a soldier who's out there already knows what he has to do, he's not going to have to go back into the training, and he doesn't have to do that every single time. He needs to do only what he needs to do to keep himself effectively in the field. In that way, a person who's already in transcendental loving service, who's already involved in transcendental loving service, for him, these Vedic rituals and these rites are not important anymore because he's already achieved the purpose of those rituals and rites. The purpose of the training is to perfect your ability. It has been perfected. So you just have to maintain it. And you're serving right now, so you're maintaining it. If one has not understood the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engages in the rituals, etc., he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements, says Prabhupada. Persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limits of Shabda Brahma, or the range of the Vedas and Upanishads. So the Vedas and Upanishads are transferred through sound. He says once you've hit Krishna consciousness, once you've perfected Krishna consciousness, you go beyond that. What you get is way beyond what the Vedas and Upanishads can give to you. As a rich man has his symptoms by which he is known, as a diseased man has his symptoms by which he is known, a learned man has symptoms. Same way, a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms. And then Krishna will go on to explain what these symptoms are. Let's look at this. Arjuna talks to Krishna. Arjuna says, right, when your mind is not disturbed and you can stay fixed and you're in self-realization, then you'll attain divine consciousness. Arjuna says, oh Krishna, what are the symptoms of someone who's like that? What are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? He says, tell me, how will I identify a person like that? What does a person like that look like? What is a person like that? How does he behave? What's his focus? And Supreme Personality of Godhead says, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. He gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification. He's not trying to please himself with his senses, interacting with the things around him. His mind is purified and he's satisfied in self alone. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a stage of steady mind. One who is not disturbed, even amid the threefold miseries. So no matter what is happening to you, you stay calm, you stay equipoised. Even if there's happiness, even if there's anger, fear, you stay calm. Such a person is called a sage of steady mind. So the first quality Prabhupada says of a person who is in Krishna consciousness, he says, He speaks only of Krishna and only of matters relating to Krishna. So the question Arjuna is asking, these answers are coming. The first answer is, what is the immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious person? He speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to Krishna. One has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, you cannot stop these desires. But if you engage in Krishna consciousness, then automatically the power of these desires will slowly subside. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Recognize who you are, recognize your position, and take it up because it is your Sanatana Dharma. The purport 2.56, in that, Srila Prabhupada brings out the word Muni. So if we see in the previous statement, we see here that a person who is not disturbed, he's called a sage of steady mind. This term, stage of steady mind, is what we're talking about, and that is the Muni. So Prabhupada explains the concept by saying a Muni is one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. So he can think this and think that and, throw ideas in and out and rotate it and still not come to any proper conclusion. Just for the joy of asking, the joy of trying out permutations and combinations, a Muni tries out a different way of thinking, a different approach. It's said that every Muni has a different angle of vision. And unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in a strict sense of the term. But we're not talking about Munis here, says Prabhupada. We're talking about a Sthita Dhira Muni. A Sthita Dhira Muni is one who is always in Krishna consciousness, because for him, he has exhausted his business of creative speculation. A Muni is involved in the business of creative speculation. Maybe like this, or like that, or this way, or that way. But a Sthita Dhira Muni, he has exhausted this business. He's always in Krishna consciousness. He is called Prashanta Nishesha Mano Ratantara, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation. He has come to the conclusion, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sudurlabha. He has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna, Vasudeva, is everything. Such is a Muni, a Sthitadhira Muni, a Muni of fixed mind. A fully Krishna conscious person is not disturbed by the onslaught of the threefold miseries. Remember, we just read it. He accepts it all. And how does he approach it? I like this concept. It says, he accepts all miseries as mercy. He takes it as mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble. Because of the way he has lived, his past misdeeds, he sees his miseries. And by the grace of the Lord, they have been minimized. So what I'm suffering is the bare minimum. The Lord has been merciful on me. He's only given me so much, but actually, who knows how much I have taken, how much I must have amassed in the way I have lived. He sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he's happy, he gives credit to the Lord. He says, oh, it's Krishna. It's Krishna's mercy that I'm here. It's Krishna's mercy that this happened to me. And he thinks himself unworthy of the happiness. Oh, I did not deserve it, but Krishna, so merciful the Lord, he has given it to me. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. His focus is to constantly give service. And for the service of the Lord, he's always daring and active. And he's not influenced by attachment or aversion. He does not have an opinion about whether he likes something or dislikes something. It's for the Lord, then I'm ready to do it. Such is his attitude. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification. Detachment is the absence of sensual attachment. So I'm accepting something because it tastes good, feels good, sounds good, smells good, makes me feel good. That is attachment. And if I don't do that, it's detachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry, even when his attempts become unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. In the material world, one who is unaffected by good or evil he may obtain, neither praising nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, like a tortoise draws its limbs within its shell, is firmly situated in perfect consciousness. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remain. But seizing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is then fixed in Krishna consciousness. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of determination and discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. As long as one is in the material world, there's going to be good and evil, because the world in itself is full of duality, says Prabhupada. But when you fix your mind on Krishna consciousness, good and evil doesn't affect you, because you are concerned only with Krishna, and Krishna is all good, absolute. Good and evil doesn't affect you because you're only concerned with Krishna, and Krishna is all good, absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in perfect transcendental position called samadhi. The test of a yogi, remember one who's in yoga, who's constantly thinking of the Supreme. Test of a yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and thus directed by the dictation of the senses. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely, without restriction. I'm reminded of that analogy from Alice in Wonderland, where she goes and there's this cake sitting there, says, eat me. And there's this drink sitting there, says, drink me. And, she eats one, she gets huge. She drinks one, she gets small. Remember that story in Alice in Wonderland? And I'm reminded of that when we go down to Palo Alto to do our monthly Harinam festival. And around us, we are surrounded by shops. And as we share the Bhagavad Gita and we tell people stuff, we always we tell them, everything around you, this world is full of things that are telling you, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. The senses are tugging you. Like, oh, new ice cream shop. Let me go taste that. Oh, Subway. I want to try that. Oh, this is a new restaurant. Oh, I've got this cosmetics. Makes you feel good. Would you like to try these shoes? They make you it's very comfortable. You want to use all your senses and experience the world around you. It's calling to you. The material world calls to you in so many ways. And in today's age of advertisement and marketing, it does it so much more. You're bombarding your senses. Your senses are bombarded every day with all these subtle instructions to keep entertaining yourself. So this description as venomous serpents is pretty accurate. They act very loosely without restriction, these senses. So how do you control them? The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents, like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. So it says, there's a beautiful song that I know in a regional language that goes, as the eyes observe, should the feet follow? As the feet follow, should the heart follow? Is that how someone should live their life? And those are the wordings of the song. And it says, that's true, right? You see something, and then you start to go behind it, and then you get attached to it. And before you know it, you're doing something you never planned to do. And that's how the senses act on you. Hey, how did I end up here eating my third scoop of ice cream? I have no idea. So this is how the senses, right? So he says a strong person, a yogi, will never let his senses drag him around. He will not allow his senses to act independently. There are many injunctions in revealed scriptures. Some of them are says, do not do, and some says do. Unless one is able to follow the do's and don'ts, restricting himself from sense enjoyment, it isn't possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. So all these regulations that we have are there to help support us and fix ourselves firmly. Sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga is recommended for less intelligent people. So how am I going to fix my senses? And he says, oh, there are these processes, this Ashtanga Yoga, all this yoga, all this like postures and this and that will train you. And you just don't look at it, don't think of it, don't do it. And he says, that's for less intelligent people, says Prabhupada. What you really need to do is develop a taste for the Supreme. One who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one has an actual taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. It is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot seize such material engagements. Krishna consciousness is, as such, a transcendently nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man has satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatables. The great sage Durvasa Muni, so this is an example that they pull out. He says the great sage Durvasa Muni, he picked a quarrel with a devotee. His name was Maharaj Ambarish. Durvasa Muni was unnecessarily angry out of pride, and therefore he could not control his senses. On the other hand, the king, who was not a big, powerful yogi or a sage, just a devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated the sage's injustices, and thereby he emerged victorious. So in that story, given as an example, talks about how a devotee, just by being a sincere devotee, is more qualified than even great munis because they're able to control their senses. He silently tolerated his injustices and emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is a beautiful verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You click on it. See, it takes us to the Bhaktivedanta purport, and it brings us to Srimad Bhagavatam 9, 4, 18, 20. And this is the shloka. It's a beautiful shloka. And it tells us, how do we fix our mind? How do we become like that? It says, Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vacham sivai kunta gunanu varnane karau harer mandira marjanadishu shrutim chakarachyuta satkatodaye mukunda lingalaya darshane drishau tadvritya gatra sparshananga sangamam Granam cha tatpada saroja saurabe Srimat tulasya rasanam tadampite Padau hare kshetra padanu sarpane Siro rishikesha padhabhivandane Kamam cha dasyena tu kama kamaya Yatottama sloka janashraya rathi. The translation is, Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deities of Krishna, Krishna's temples, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrant tulasi offered to the Lord. He engaged his tongue in tasting Krishna Prasadam. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord. His head in bowing down before the Lord. All his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service, in various engagements relating to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free of all material desires. So that is the standard, the gold standard. That's how Maharaj Ambarish attained that kind of self-control. Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great scholar and acharya in the line of Matpara, remarks, Madbhakti prabhavena sarvendriya vijaya purvika swatma drishti sulabheti bhav. The senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Matpara, dear to me. Those who are dear to Krishna end up having real great strength in devotional service. And it comes because of Krishna's mercy. It's also the example of a fire that is given. He says, As a blazing fire burns everything within a room, Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. As long as we can focus on him and serve him, the Lord can also reciprocate. He burns up our impurities and gives us an opportunity to cleanse ourselves. So at some point, I wanted to bring this up, so I put it here, almost hitting the end of the flow here. And there may be people who've been listening to the lecture and wondering, what is this Mataji doing? She's just pulling out Srila Prabhupada's purports and popping them in and using them as a reference. I don't see any personal effort from her side to bring in new ideas or concepts. Is she trying really, or is she just using, she's just using ready reference and, putting it in. And for those who feel that way, I really want to apologize. I understand your approach, but, there's no better way to understand Krishna than through Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada wrote us this whole thick book, the Bhagavad Gita, and the way he says it is so much better than any way I can say. Would you rather, we are here to taste the honey of Krishna's words. Would you rather taste it through the slotted spoon of an ignorant fool's personal understanding, or would you taste it through the grooved honey spoon of Srila Prabhupada's purports? Because if you want to taste it through me, then a fool like me can only give you so much. Because I'm like a slotted spoon. I can only grab a portion of what is there. But Srila Prabhupada, he's made for this. His work is made for this. He's like the honey spoon. You dip a honey spoon in honey, it'll grab as much and more of the honey as it can. It's made particularly, specifically to grab that honey. And that's how Srila Prabhupada's writing is. So I'm doing the best I can do by giving you the best that is there to offer. And I'm giving you Srila Prabhupada's words. So let's taste Krishna's honey through the spoon that is Srila Prabhupada and relish it to its maximum through his presentation and understanding. We're almost there. We have 2 more sets of text. We're at 72. So here 62 to 66 has some explanation. And then beyond that, it's pretty simple. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger develops. We'll look at this more in chapter 3. From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. It's very similar to the song I was saying. I see something, then it's like, I look at something, oh, that looks good. How about I try that? And I go down and I'm like, that looks really good. How would I taste that flavor? And I'm looking at it and I'm developing this attachment. And then I'm like, I really want to eat that now. And there's this lust or desire to attain it. And the shop is closed. And then there's frustration and there's anger. I'm giving you a very simple example because it made a lot of sense to me. So hopefully it might help a few people connect. Anger comes because I can't fulfill my lust. And from anger, I get delusional. I'm like, why is this happening? Why do you have to close so early? And I'm not really thinking straight. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. So an angry person loses control over his decisions. He's not able to think clearly. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So this explanation starts from a very basic understanding. Remember, we don't want to engage our senses in the world around us. We don't want this material sense gratification. But by exposing ourselves to these stimulants around us, we develop an attachment, and from that lust develops. And then from the lust, we're unable to attain, anger develops. And from anger, we get frustrated. We try our very best to go get it. We lose our intelligence, which is trying to tell us, don't do this. And we fall down back into the cycle. But a person free from all attachment and aversion, the dualities, I want, I don't want, I like, I don't like. A person who's free from these dualities and is able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom. I love that phrase, through the regulative principles of freedom. How can anything that regulates you bring you freedom? This is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. The 4 regulative principles. No meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. These are real freedom because it frees our mind, soul. It frees us to do the thing we really want to do and do it well. It helps us be perfect yogis, it helps us focus on the Supreme and become good in our devotional service. They are regulative principles that gain us the real freedom, and that will obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence, Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, and Adi Kleshik. I hope I'm right. Threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. If we stay like this, if we can do this, our intelligence will set. We will know what is right, what is wrong, what should be done, and how it should be done. One who is not connected with the Supreme can neither have transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness if you have no peace? No Krishna, no peace. You need to know. Notable points. We've been doing this all through. The senses require engagement. If they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will look for engagement in the material world around us. They cannot sit still. So we cannot fool ourselves into thinking, just as long as I don't do anything, I'll be fine. Mind will drive you to go try to do something. So rather than doing that, try to apply yourself in doing the things that are Krishna conscious, serving the Lord. One who is not Krishna conscious is subject to material desires when contemplating the objects of the senses. Even Lord Shiva, this is an example Prabhupada gives. He was in meditation when Parvati agitated him. He agreed to the proposal, and in the result, Kartikeya was born. But Haridas Thakur, who was a young devotee of the Lord, was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, but he passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. A person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. He knows that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain the perfect stage of renunciation. So this renunciation is called Phalgu, or less important renunciation. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable. If Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not to act is within his control because he acts only under the direction of the Lord. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord. What are they trying to say? So stay in Krishna consciousness. Continue to serve. You will constantly be purified to the point where the Lord's causeless mercy will cleanse you and you will be able to act in the right manner. If one is not in Krishna consciousness, there can be no final goal for the mind. Mind needs a goal. The real goal is to connect with Krishna and serve him. Without that, disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. And when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring peace. So unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. This is the last set of 5 verses. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Therefore, O mighty armed one, whose senses are restrained from their objects, is certainly of steady intelligence. So one whose senses are restrained is certainly of steady intelligence. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. What is he trying to say? He says, one who has understood this, so he says, you need to understand that an introspective or thoughtful person, he will not want to get materially absorbed. So when materialistic people, they remain asleep in the night of introspection, a sage is awake he remains alert in that night. He feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of his spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activity at that time sleeps through it. He does not want anything to do with this. He dreams of varieties of sense pleasure, feeling happy, sad, distressed, enjoying in his sleeping condition. He's unaware of his spiritual purpose. He's unaware of his spiritual self-realization goals. So he's basically sleeping. And in that night, for him, what is day is night for us. We do not get involved in material sense gratification. And what is night for him is day for us. Spiritual realization, spiritual introspection. That's the time when he's not interested. For us, it's our day. We feel happy in advancing spiritually. So Prabhupada explains, Krishna says, a person who is not disturbed by incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but always still, can alone achieve peace. Not the man who strives to satisfy desires. He says, don't try to satisfy desires. Desires are unending. They will constantly come. The demands are unending. Kamadinam katina katita palita durnideshas tesham jata maina karuna natrapanopashantihi utsrijeta matayadupate sampratam labha buddhis tvamayatha sharanam abhayam mamniyung swatmadasye. These senses, they have controlled me. They have dragged me to do things I didn't want to do. They have never once considered me or my thoughts or my needs. I have stopped serving them now. With this little bit of mercy I have received, I have refused their orders. My Lord, apply me in your service. Keep me in your service. These are the prayers. Aren't they beautiful? It says, a person should be like that. When rivers enter the ocean, you don't see the ocean bubbling or flowing around. It stays calm despite all these rivers coming in. It says all these desires that these senses and sense objects are creating, just allow them to flow. Don't respond to them. And that's only possible when the Lord's mercy is there. We try from our side, we receive the Lord's mercy. A person who has given up all desire for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. This is the way of a spiritual, godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter the kingdom of God. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports, the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in the matter of its contents. It says, there are two classes of intelligent men. One is intelligent in material activities and the other is in introspection. And for one, when it's day, for the other, it is night. So you have to really find a bona fide spiritual master and apply yourself in the art of Krishna consciousness. Then you become a sadhaka, a suitable candidate for liberation. So he says, having done all this, we come to the ending. He says, before ending this life, if one fortunately becomes Krishna conscious, he at once attains the stage of Brahma Nirvana. There is no difference between the kingdom of God and the devotional service of the Lord. Isn't that so beautiful? He says there is no difference between the kingdom of God and the devotional service of the Lord. Both of them are on the absolute plane. To be engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. Haribol. So he says it's not that you have to attain Krishna consciousness from a very early age. It's not that you have to work on it for so many lifetimes. One can attain it even within a second. And you can maintain it, or you may not attain it over millions and millions of births. It's only a matter of understanding and accepting the obvious fact. So the example they give is Khatvanga Maharaj, who even a few minutes before his death was able to surrender unto Krishna and attain liberation. So the desire for becoming Krishna consciousness is actually desireless. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, everything must be used for Krishna's satisfaction. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own self-satisfaction. He says, for my senses, I don't want it anymore. But when he realizes Krishna is asking him to fight, he does it. He does not have a desire to fight, but he fights at his best ability as a service to the Lord. That is real desirelessness. It's a desire for the satisfaction of Krishna. It's not an artificial attempt at avoidance in the effort to abolish those desires. I hope this helped. We will stop here. Next time we will study chapter 3, Karma Yoga. I hope chapter 2 was not too heavy. I hope you could walk away with a few points that made sense to you. And I really, really pray from the bottom of my heart that something in today's lecture made you want to go pick up the Bhagavad Gita and hear Srila Prabhupada speak to you again. Because if that is something that can happen, then I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for your patience and accommodation. Forgive me for any mistakes that I have made. I live to be corrected. I'm a student in training. Please consider, if anything was useful, it has come from the mercy of my Shiksha and Diksha Guru, my Guru Maharaj's mercy alone. I have no part to play. Thank you for this opportunity to serve. Hare Krishna. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. Thank you, Prabhu, for helping.
Sunil Prabhu is saying that thank you for the class.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for coming and listening. The Bhagavad Gita is, I have been reading the Bhagavad Gita for many years on and off because I had to study it for the Bhakti Shastri, and then I studied it whenever I need it. I try to teach my kids whenever there's a need, but I'm unable to make this into, like Krishna says, a steady daily practice. It's something I really, really want to do, but it hasn't taken away my love for the text. I really enjoy reading Srila Prabhupada's writing. It speaks to you at a very different level. I feel Prabhupada is the perfect package for Krishna consciousness. He's just amazing. Thank you so much for coming and listening. We're a little above time, so we'll stop right here. We'll see you next time, next Wednesday, for some more discussion on the Bhagavad Gita.
So Manjula Mataji, I have a request. So what I found was, Prabhupada made everything simple. You made it simpler.
Oh,
thank you for it.
Thank you
Please
so
continue. Please continue.
Thank you, Prabhu. I will try. Krishna willing, if it's meant to be, then I will try to complete the Gita. We can do it all together. Yes, it's there's no greater joy than sharing something that has changed you for the better. Srila Prabhupada has left an indelible impact on my life. Could not have been here without him. And I am so grateful, so grateful. So thank you so much for those kind words. If it's of any interest. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Manjula, Kantha, it was really nice. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mataji.
We were able to hear from the beginning to the end. Thank you so much.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much, Mataji. I'm so happy. Hare Krishna.
Same.
Yeah,
Thank you,
hope to see you
Madam.
soon again. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wow. I think as Sunil Pro so nicely pointed out, really, definitely everything is there in Prabhupada's book, but then when we hear from those who are love, that love transformed our own heart. So thank you for transforming our heart through your heart, that you have already soaking in the Krishna's and Prabhupada's mercy. So we also get that little drop.
I think it's very mutual, Prabhu. Just seeing that, taking your time out on a weekday to sit and listen is an act of love in itself, an effort to connect. And because there's this desire, there's this opportunity for people like me to come and put something out there in service. So I'm so grateful that you all came to listen today.
And also Manjula Mataji, one thing I really give you a lot of credit, giving that honey example. Like you have a spoon, spoon with holes, you take that honey and you take the other honey, which is constantly flowing, right? What this is such an excellent example, you cannot be better than that, right?
It struck me because I was trying to create this sheet for you to look at. And I was thinking, so I was scratching my head and thinking, how can I make it better? How can I make it better? And the thought came to me, I'm always reminded of Srila Prabhupada's statement. We go out to distribute books and he says, how much can you do? How much can you say? But if only they would open the book and read one page, one paragraph, one word, it would do so much more than whatever you can. So Prabhupada's expression was like, get the book to them. Do your best to get the book to everyone. Because in the book, there's so much mercy. And Srila Prabhupada didn't say it in a sense like, oh, I have something better to give than you. Let them listen to me because I'm so much better. No, it's the same concept as how Krishna says, Man manabhava mad bhakto. He's talking about it. He says, I can give it to them. Just bring them here and I'll help them out. He's just stating the facts. There is absolutely no, it's just humble humility. And I am always reminded of Prabhupada saying that when I sit to create any kind of presentation, and what can an impact have from someone like me? But even one word from Srila Prabhupada would have so much of an impact. So that's why I remembered that analogy. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
So
Well, I'll definitely remember if shop is closed, why I'm getting angry. You're perfect.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
that
very.
one was a good example. That was a good example.
I have two kids at those ages, Sometimes you drive down, they really want something, you pick up the car, you drive all the way down, and the shop is closed.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling because the kids getting frustrated. I'm trying to find solutions. And
Yeah.
actually, Krishna consciousness and our day-to-day lives are enmeshed in each other. The more we recognize the Gita in our day-to-day lives, the more it becomes from a written to a visual text. It exists around us. We see it in action, right? It's like learning something and applying something. So the more we see the impact, the Bhagavad Gita, when I see people reading the Bhagavad Gita, I always feel, when I see something and the shloka pops up in my mind, or I look at something and I hear Prabhupada's words, then the Gita comes alive to me. And if the Gita can come alive for you, if you can live and breathe the Gita, then nothing can replace that kind of connection. It really connects. And what are you connecting to? You're connecting to the actual words of the Supreme, right? I really liked, my favorite part was the last one where it said, everything is absolute. So the kingdom of God and devotional service are one and the same. It took me a long time. And I read it today and I realized, oh my God, that is so simple. That's why as we keep serving, we eventually go home. Your seva will save you. Came from that sentence from Srila Prabhupada. So every day I learn something new. I'm so happy. Hare Krishna Prabhus. I won't hold you any longer. We'll wrap up here. Manchakalpataribhyascha. Pranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai.
Hare Krishna Manjula Kantha Mata Ji ki Jai. Hare
Jai. We'll close the session, dear devotees. Now we'll meet again on Saturday, Sunday, and then Wednesday again online.